Good morning, beautiful people. Glad you're here on this beautiful day. You know, I was telling Ken on the way over here, you don't realize how hazy it is in the summer until you look at fall days. It's like seeing everything in HD. You know, it's just so beautiful, and the sky's so beautiful. Something about the November trees are actually prettier than the October trees because it's right before they lose the leaves, but they get so vivid and dark. You know, they're beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. Those of you that are logging on, we welcome you. And our apologies for being late. It's Ken's fault because he's going to talk to everybody. It's totally his. I could never blame him for anything. The crowd's so clearly with him. We're in agreement for a beautiful day. Please remain standing for this, if you would.
Hello, and welcome to Metron. Metron means measure and sphere of influence, and we want to help you find your Metron. Through motivation, enlightenment, transcendence, renewal, outreach, and networking. We're excited to have you here today, and hope you enjoy the service.
Greetings, Metronites. Glad that you're here. Give yourselves a big hand for making it. Where I live, they're making movies constantly around. Like, we went to see a movie yesterday, and I swear half of the previews they showed are things in my neighborhood. I'm like, oh, that's there. And a couple of them were even in my neighborhood in Covington. And so today, I don't know what they're filming, but we literally had to drive through a tank upside down on fire. I said, we may be just a minute late. It looks like the apocalypse. If you didn't know they're making movies, you think it's the end of the world. But it's like I live in a movie set. I guess I attracted the movies to where I live. Like, I don't have to go to theaters now to see the movies. They're in my neighborhood. I look out my window. So anyway, glad that there was no actual tank on fire upside down. So glad it worked out this month for us to be able to have Marshall Ruffin. I don't think it's any secret how much we all love his gift, and it's always good. It's always affirming. He didn't even know because he didn't hear the message last week, but his song choices last week confirmed so many things I was teaching on this month. So I love that synchronicity, and so I know he's going to bring it today. I've got. I understand we're in some really new territory with what I started last week, but I'm very committed to this word, and I want to take you even deeper with it because it's something really wonderful is going to happen here today. So, and his gift is going to help make that happen. So, without any further ado, would you please welcome our friend and brother Marshall Ruffin? Marshall, I give to you the microphone.
Coming over to my house. Yeah, it's been productive. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, I did like a year ago. I think I might have to remind myself how I did it. I would never do that. We recorded 2 songs the other day. This is both my tunes that I wrote. This is one of those songs. Every evening I have seen has been long and has been lean. Back when Mama cooked her hope into the family pan, washed it out with her feet in the sand. Papa sowed his fear into barren clay. Brothers and sisters faded away, but I remain here reverently. Yeah, the Holy Ghost got plans for me. Every single morning I had read the only book better than bread for putting back a power to a withering hand, burying the burden of a wandering man. Said even though my path has been so hard to find, has been covered in the earth, has been covered in the vine, I know that the way is the remedy. Yeah, the Holy Ghost got plans for me. Said keep your eyes to the sun. We are seekers, everyone, and though our time is sure to end in elegy, well, fear no death by beast or man, for the shores of the promised land, those repentant and redeemed are bound to see. Said even though my blessings they may be few, there's got to be some good working left to do. So I will wait here reverently till the Holy Ghost says those plans He's got for me. Your eyes to the sun. Raise your voices, everyone, till they're ringing out over every corner of stone and sea. For soon the chariot will roll on down the lane, with the angels all hollering out thy name, to please thee with him in raising verity. Oh, said even though my blessings they may seem few, Lord knows there's got to be some good working left to do. Yes, and I will wait here reverently, 'cause the Holy Ghost got plans for me. I said that even though my blessings they may be few, Lord knows there's got to be some good working left to do. So I will raise this reverie. Yeah, the Holy Ghost got plans for me. Well, the moon is broken and the sky is cracked. Come on up to the house. The only thing you can see is all that you lack. Come on up to the house. When you're fussing and fighting won't do you no good, come on up to the house. You better get down off your cross, we could use the wood. Come on up to the house. Oh, you better come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. Oh, the world is not my home, I'm just passing through. I gotta get on up to the house. When there's no light in the tunnel, there's no irons in the fire. Come on up to the house. When you've been singing lead soprano in the drunk man's choir, just get on up to the house. Oh, when life seems nasty, brutish and short, come on up to the house. Oh, have your seas been stormy? Can you find no port? Just get on up to the house. Oh, you better come on up to the house. You better get on up to the house. Oh, the world is not my home, I'm just passing through. I'm gonna get on up to the house. When you're high on top of your mountain of woe, come on up to the house. Well, you know you should surrender, but you can't let go. Get on up to the house. Oh, you better come on up to the house. You better get on up to the house. Oh, the world is not my home, I'm just passing through. I gotta come back up to the house. Oh, the world is not my home, I'm just passing through. The world is not my home, I'm just passing through. The world is not my home, I'm just passing through. I'm gonna get back up to the house. What song am I doing next? What? Oh yeah, okay. What key am I doing? I'm just kidding. I will enter His gate. in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. I will say, this is the day that the Lord has made. Oh, I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Oh, he has made me glad. Oh, he has made me glad. Oh, I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Oh, I will sail across the sea with thanksgiving in my heart. I will stand upon those shores, those golden shores with praise. Oh, I will say, this is the day that the Lord has made. Oh, I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Oh, he has made me glad. Oh, he has made me glad. Oh, I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Oh, he has made me glad. Oh, he has made me glad. Yes, and I will rejoice, for he has made me glad.
Marshall Ruffin. He's made me glad. Beautiful. Good stuff. Yeah. We have to, when it's a song of that, you have to stand up and honor. And whether that's you that's singing about the Lord, or if you're singing about your higher self or whatever, something bigger than what you perceive here is making you glad. If that's God to you, then we celebrate that and worship that. So it's beautiful, beautiful. Thanks, Marshall. You may be seated. Beautiful day. Hey to those of you that came in during the singing. Glad that you're here. We've had a busy week, interesting week, good week. Monday, of course, was his Aunt Sandra's going home service, and it was at the Methodist church there where she was for many, many years. And it was really bittersweet. It was a good experience, especially to be out there with these, these are old school Methodist people that I did the graveside, and everybody's so embracing, and they know who we are, and they're not afraid to even use the word husband, and just, it's really, even, let's see, Friday night I went out there, and what are you emotional about, his song or me talking about Sandra? Oh, you still got, when I get to talking about this, I don't we went out to the house where his cousin Lori, who's really more like his sister, we were there and trying to bring some comfort to the family, and her friend was there. They grew up together. And how do I say this? These girls, the word badass has been overused, but these girls know their way around a beer bottle. You know what I mean? And they're very unpretentious, and they just are what they are. And they're good old girls. And don't tick them off, because they don't need to call a boy to come beat your A. They will take. You can just tell these girls are not playing. So whatever Lori's friend is, she came in and her face was swollen, and I don't know if she'd been in a fight. I don't know what it is, but she had an abscess in her tooth, and it was really causing a lot of pain. And so we were talking about Sandra and everything, but before she left, I just said, come here a minute. And I didn't even ask her. I just put my hand on her face, and I said, I speak healing to you right now. She said, thank you. Well, at the funeral, she comes up to Ken, and she goes, I don't know what your husband did, but he healed me. She said, I got home, and all that was gone. I said, you're welcome. Now I'm going to have to bill you. But it was, the place was packed, and the pastor there was very courteous to me, and it was just, it was hard, but as good as it could be in that kind of situation. And then we went up to our annual fall trek up to Howie's place, and that was amazingly, there was a lot more color still up there than we even thought there was going to be. That was in Blue Ridge. They have a train now. It won't be running when we're there in January, because they end it December 31st. But if you're ever up there, they do a train from there to McKaysville, which is right on the border of Tennessee, and it's cool. You're out, you have time to go get lunch, and it's nice little scenery. And so we did that, and it was interesting. Howie wasn't feeling 100%. We weren't really kind of up to doing the high impact hiking that we normally do. So we were just driving around taking pictures, and drove through Helen and all that stuff. And then I asked him, I said, Howie, do you still have those, some people call them divining rods, some people call them dowsing rods. I said, those that we took to a cemetery last year when I was up here, do you still have them in your car? And he said, yeah, I do, because this is fascinating. It's not morbid. It's actually kind of what I'm talking about this month. I said, let's find an ancient cemetery somewhere. So we found some Baptist church that was up, and there was like Baptists buried there, and Native Americans buried there, and some of the graves are so old they just look prehistoric. Like you can't see right there. Some of them aren't even marked. They're just like rocks. And I don't know if you've ever done this before, but you take the rods, and they're like this until you walk over where somebody's buried, and it goes just like this. And when you move away from it, it does like that. And what was really interesting is like on plots where it's a husband and wife, like if one of them is already deceased, you'll go there and that it X's, and you go over to the empty grave, and it does like that. And it does it every time. It does it immediately. And so I don't have all the answers for what exactly does it mean. Does it mean that the body that's buried under there still has the energy in it? Because when I wrote about it this week, God did say to Cain, he says, the blood of your brother Abel is speaking to me from the ground. And then, there was a time where they threw a dead man's body into the tomb of Elisha. And there was still so much vibration in Elisha's bones that the man came back to life just being on Elisha's bones. So I'm interested in that. And then people were asking, what about cremation? I don't know if you're cremated. I'm not anti-cremation. It's just I don't know if the energy goes somewhere else then. Is it just absorbed back into the universe? I don't know. But something is really, there's definitely something about it. And one thing, I don't know what to make of this, but there was one, all the graves are here, and there's one real isolated grave, like it's nearly in the woods. So, and I noticed there was a little wall around it, so it looks like nobody's going to be buried there with this guy, whoever he is. He's like way isolated. And he was like, his name is Uncle somebody. He was somebody that the community knew. He died like maybe in the early 90s. And I went over there, and it's the only grave that it would go, And I thought, is he not there? Or is it, I thought, I swear if I turn around, he's standing right there. Because I had just watched this thing on YouTube about, it's a true story about this family that lives in Georgia, and they lived kind of out. They had a little girl, only child, and the little girl kept saying, the mother would say, "Who were you talking to out there?" And she's, "I'm talking, Mr. Corey, I think was the name." So they were freaking out because they said, "Who's this man that's talking to our little girl?" They go this whole thing, they won't allow her to go outside anymore. Well, she talks about this man constantly, and until it was kind of, really worrying them. And then somehow in a conversation, they found out the man that owned that property, that was his name, and they found a newspaper clip. This little girl's 5 years old. As soon as she saw it, she said, "Oh, that's Mr. Court." Like, she knew who he was, and they were talking to a paranormal expert, and he says, "I don't technically believe in ghosts. I think sometimes people perceive it as ghosts, but it's energy. It's like people who lived here who have not moved to the next dimension fully or whatever. They still have, unfinished business or whatever, and it's really interesting." And some of you are like, "What the heck are you talking about?" No, it's fascinating to me because I don't think we cease to exist. I think we were here, and then we came in this form, and we're here for a while, and then we become something else. We become part of the stars or whatever. I'm just very interested with energy, and it opens up a lot of questions. Like, well, why are the dowsing rods just on the graves? Is it that body there, or is it because people have projected feeling toward that grave? Is that the energy that you're picking up? Are you picking up on people's emotion or sorrow or whatever? I don't fully have the answers to that, but there's definitely something to it. And it's the same way that people find water underground too. So, and which can be a connection because we're largely made up of water. I don't know, but one thing I've learned, you don't have to fully understand what something means to be interested in it. And you can just I'm not sure, I don't know exactly how to explain this, but I am interested in it, and it's telling me something. So maybe more of it will be incorporated in my teaching next week, because I got too much to say to go there today. Anyway, it was great, and came back and spent some time with my new grandbaby, and remembered how to give a bottle and burp, and Christina was still there. She was actually I was supposed to babysit her, and Christina was so late for her dentist appointment, she ended up not making it, so we just went to lunch. But I could tell Clementine had a serious diaper, and I said, "Christina, I haven't done this in a long time. I'll do it if I have to, but could you help me out here?" She said, because if I'd been there by myself, I would have had to, rise to the occasion. But she is a sweet baby. And then my Uncle Don posted a picture of Mom holding me when I was a baby with my Aunt Joan, just when I was about her age, and it's identical. I sent the picture because I know, in fairness to Todd's family, he may want, we all see what we see. I said, "Christina, tell me, who does the baby look like?" She said, "Oh my God, it might just be that one picture. I don't know, but it was definitely my grandbaby." So, all right, look, 2 weeks from today, we will not be here. We will be in Eatonton at Chapel of Love. So, and we did send a little more money this week to help out with food. I think Francis is going to bring some food to supplement what we have out there. So, please, he's just gone to a lot of effort to get this thing finished. So you really have to be there. And the times we've been there before, it's just really been an extraordinary experience. So I'm expecting you all to show up, and if you have friends in Eatonton, I'm hoping Ken will contact his people out there. And that I don't know. I don't remember. Do you remember, Avery, what time their service starts? Okay, I'm going to say 11. I think it was 11. Thank you for asking, because I hadn't even considered there was a. I don't remember if we did that before. So we will do that. Will be our Thanksgiving celebration. Our outreach this month was already to Chapel of Love, and we'd already sent that money previously, because I know he needed to get. He's done the work himself with his sons, but there's some things that they have to have the experts come in and do. So it's really going to be a interesting synergy that happens. So anytime Robert and I are in the same vicinity, something unusual happens. It's been happening for as long as I've known him, since '81. So we have a lot of experiences. Also, make sure you have in your calendar December 17th. It's a Tuesday night. We'll be at the Castle and Peachtree. The Dickens singers are going to be there. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best Christmas we've ever had. So we'll be telling you about ticket stuff. I don't know, when are we starting that? When are we starting ticket? On the 7th? Okay. We'll give you about a month in advance to get that done. And it would be great if you would get that done ahead of time and not be texting Avery on the way there going, we're coming, we're bringing 7 people. It's like, we hate you so much when you do that. Because you have no idea what we have to work out with caterers and everything. So I need you to do that. Most of you are really good about that. The ones who aren't here today. So so there you have it. And then remember that our meditation weekend number 9 will be in Blue Ridge, Georgia, where I just was this week. And looks like that's their off season, so I don't think it's going to be difficult finding a place. There's actually a lot of cabins that are available that are amazingly reasonable. I'm amazed that they're as reasonable as they are. I am going to secure an indoor place since it's going to be January. So that's just going to be great. I tell you, my favorite things that we've done in Metron are these meditation weekends. I just love them so much. So make sure all that's on your calendar, all right? Is that everything that I needed to announce? Oh, yeah, that's our Living Our Best Life. What's that? Thank you for reminding me. You were supposed to remind me of that. I think there were some more too. Or maybe it was on the shout out. Maybe is what I was looking at. So thank you for that. Y'all went to your grandson's honoring of veterans. That's a flyover where they do. That's very cool. Well, this would be a perfect time to segue. If you are in honor of Veterans Day, if you are a veteran, would you please stand? We'd like to honor you, please. Any of our veterans, thank you. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. And we honor you, especially for all the people that don't understand what Memorial Day is, who already told you, who already said Happy Veterans Day. Memorial Day is for those who have already made the ultimate sacrifice. Veterans Day is honoring the people who served in all wars, foreign and domestic. All right, good. Now that was everything. All right, we speak in this atmosphere and we say, let there be light. Are we ready for podcast people? Welcome to the Metron Live podcast, coming to you from beautiful, historic Midtown Atlanta on a beautiful November morning in the year of our Lord 2019. Metron people, would you give the Metron Live people a big hand? Welcome. Again, thank you Charles McFall, the rock god of podcasting. We thank you that every week more and more people are becoming aware of this, and it's a great platform to use. I'm trying to think where I want to start today. Let me, Michelle, give me the outline for last week's. I want to just run through that very quickly before I get to what I want to talk about today, because I think it's important that you get context on this. Of course, our title this month is Divine Discovery, Experiencing Transfiguration by Embracing the Energy of Light, and we're going to end up on the Mount of Transfiguration today. But so that you'll be up to speed, let me just go through this very quickly. We started with Matthew 5:14. This is Jesus in the New King James Version saying, "You are the light of the world, a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden." On another occasion, he said, "I'm the light of the world." Here he says, "You are." Then we went on to Ephesians 5:8. This is in the Amplified Classic. He says, "For once you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. Lead the lives of those native born to the light." So here's Jesus saying you're the light. Here's Paul saying you're the light. Then we have a quote from John, also in the Amplified Classic, out of 1 John chapter 1. And this is the message of promise which we have heard from him and now are reporting to you. God is light, and there is no darkness in him at all, no, not in any way. If we say we are partakers together and enjoy fellowship with him when we live and move and are walking about in darkness, we are both speaking falsely and do not live and practice the truth which the gospel presents. But if we really are living and walking in the light as he himself is in the light, we have true unbroken fellowship one with another. Let's go on. Let's move on to the next. I'm just going to go through this quickly. This quote, Bill Blair is defining light energy. He says, simply stated, light is nature's way of transferring energy through space. We talked about the fact that light is the only energy that you can perceive with the natural eye, or really with any of the senses. The rest of the energy is we're sort of unaware of. We just see the effects of it. He says we can complicate it by talking about interacting electric and magnetic fields, quantum mechanics, and all of that, but just remember, light is energy. Light travels very rapidly, but it does have a finite velocity. In a vacuum, the speed of light is 186,282 miles per second, or nearly 300,000 kilometers per second. However, when we start talking about the incredible distances in astronomy, the finite nature of light's velocity becomes readily apparent. It takes about 2.5 seconds, for instance, for a radio communication traveling at the speed of light to get to the moon and back, which that's really kind of amazing. Like when I listen to satellite radio, I think this is amazing that this is coming from something that's in outer space. It's just a trip. And light energy is actually faster than sound energy. You might find it interesting to remember the next time you watch a beautiful sunrise or sunset that the sun itself actually dipped below the horizon 8 minutes earlier. It takes that long for the light to reach the earth. And of course, every newspaper article you ever read about astronomy will always include the required statement, a light year is the distance light travels in 1 year at the speed of light. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to this definition in Universe Today. It says, just asking what is light energy opens you up to a flood of other questions, trying to narrow down the context that you are asking the question in. In photometry, luminous energy is the perceived energy of light. It can also be defined as the electromagnetic radiation of visible light. Since light itself is energy, then another definition is relevant. Light is nature's way of transferring energy through space. I'm going to tie all this together. Jesus said you're the light. Paul said you're the light. John said you're the light. Now we're looking light is energy. Even with going to that cemetery this week, and I'm like, I don't know what this is about, but these entities that people knew as people, that somebody's mother buried there, that somebody's brother, that somebody's husband or wife, but it's all energy. We were energy before we got here. We are perceived as people, and then it is necessary that we go away in this entity. But we never cease to exist. The lights never go out. I mean, what's the one thing you hear when people have out-of-body experiences? What do they say? They see a light. They go toward the light. It's like you came out of the light, you go back to the light. It's all about the light. It's why we're so drawn to it. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, I forgot to tell you, Sandra, his aunt who passed, and it was interesting because I think I told you this, but Halloween night, hospice had already been there, and they said it's going to, it will be in the next few hours. And Lori said, I don't want to go on Halloween. Well, she didn't. She went like at 1:30 a.m., which was All Saints Day. And I told them, I said, I don't know if the Methodists celebrate All Saints Day, but I said, I really consider Sandra kind of a modern-day saint. I think it's appropriate that she went. But she actually started seeing the light. She saw Ken's mom. She saw her parents. Yeah, they all started coming for her to get her. It was that's amazing to me. When people start seeing loved ones, they're not hallucinating. They really, the wall between the what we call the natural and supernatural, but it's really all the same thing. It's a gradation. Is that the word? It's a what's the, when something is incremental. It's like we're already moving toward the light. And I'll explain to you what I mean by this, because I even have gotten some revelation about why I love that I was a part of Pentecostalism and the charismatic movement, and why I am where I am now. Now, remind me to come back to that. Now, this is kind of where this whole thing started from, because I was thinking the other day, I thought, I want to Google Lucifer. I don't know why. I had never had before, so I Googled Lucifer. It says Lucifer is a Latin name for the planet Venus in its morning appearances, and is often used for mythological and religious figures associated with the planet. I wasn't expecting it to say that. I was expecting to see a picture of a thing with horns and a pitchfork. Hang on. Due to the unique movements and discontinuous appearances of Venus in the sky, mythology surrounding these figures often involved a fall from the heavens to earth or the underworld. Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning. These people, they weren't living with electric lights. They actually saw the stars at night. That's why the ancients understood the constellations, and they understood how astrology works and astronomy works. We don't really see the stars unless you live way out in the country. You don't really see the stars anymore. I mean, you're under a canopy of electrical lights. So it says interpretations of a similar term in the Hebrew Bible translated in the King James Version as Lucifer led to a Christian tradition of applying the name Lucifer and its associated stories of a fall from heaven to Satan. You know what's really interesting? When you start looking at the serpent in the garden, you start seeing all these, or when Jesus would use the word adversary, it's wrong-headed to sew all that together and say that's talking about the same entity, because it's not. The modern day devil that the Christian church has it's a Frankenstein monster that we have created by saying, oh, that's the same thing. No, they're talking about different things. Most modern scholarship regards these interpretations as questionable and translates the term in the relevant Bible passages like Isaiah 14:12 as morning star or shining one, rather than as a proper name Lucifer. Is anybody here named Lucille or Lucian, or you had your mom was named Lucille? If that's what Lucille means. It means light, or Lucian, or Luciano. Or when you say somebody is lucid, it means the lights are on. What, you say she didn't walk in the light? Well, she's in the light now. Calling your mom Lucille was calling those things which are not as though they are. Just remember, Abram was called Abraham long before he ever had a child. So if she wasn't Lucille here, she's Lucille there. No. Stop. She'll hear you. Don't make me bring the dowsing rods in. The dowsing rods across. Remember last time I said, look for a sign, she broke something in your front yard. I said, it was like a Mother's Day. I said, she put in an appearance. I'm telling you, this stuff is real. Don't mess with this stuff. And definitely don't say negative stuff about me right now. The people who say negative stuff about me, I'm like, horrible things are happening to them so quick. I'm like, look, I'll be fine, but please stop it. Well, I don't want to say that, but they're dropping like flies. All right. As a name for the devil, the more common meaning in English, Lucifer, is rendered is the rendering of the Hebrew word transliteration, Hallel, pronunciation in Isaiah 14:12. That's where he says, we will all look upon him and narrowly and say, is this the one who deceived the world? He was talking about an actual king. When when people in the ancient world talked about something that was about to happen, they were meaning something that was about to happen. They weren't talking about 3,000 years from now. I mean, seriously, it's like if you will just keep that in mind, it's like, oh, they were talking about this is a king that is deceiving the whole world as they knew it. When he was finally exposed, they'll look on him and go, wow, this is the one? Given in the King James Version of the Bible. All right, go on. The translators of this version took the word from the Latin Vulgate. The Latin Vulgate was, before there was an English translation, it's when ancient translators took the Hebrew and translated into Latin, and then from the Latin translated it to English, which translated, there it is in the Hebrew, by the Latin word Lucifer, uncapitalized, meaning the morning star, the planet Venus, or as an adjective, light-bringing. As a name for the planet in its morning aspect, Lucifer is a proper name and is capitalized in English. In Greco-Roman civilization, it was often personified and considered a god, and in some versions considered the son of Aurora or the dawn. All right. Then we went to, I've shared this before, but this, I mean, I'm telling you, this is what I already knew in my spirit. When I read it in Aramaic, it was just like a big Holy Ghost check. Like, as it turns out, things that I knew by the Spirit, when I've looked in original languages, I think, oh, I was right, and I knew it. I didn't know, I wasn't trying to prove a point, but when I found what these people actually said, that's what felt right to me. This is what's awesome. I was taught in Bible college, if your heart says one thing and the text says something else, ignore your heart and go with the text. Now I think just the opposite. And all those things that you grew up, you remember when you used to hear a preacher say something that you think, that can't be right? Like I used to hear preachers say the majority of humanity is going to be in hell. That was our concept. And basically we just meant our denomination, because that's really what we thought. We thought the people who came out of the Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee people were going to heaven because we had it right. And everybody else who had ever lived was all going to be in hell. And even as a child, I dare not say it out loud, but I used to think, wow, what a terrible plan. If this was God's plan, that only this group out of a southern denomination, and when I met other denominations, they all thought the same thing. Everybody thought they were right and somebody else was wrong. All right, I love mountains. And in the Gospels, every time something significant happened in Jesus' life, he went up to a mountain. There's the Mount of the Beatitudes, the Mount of Transfiguration, the Mount of Temptation, the Mount of Ascension, like all the big events. Anytime Jesus starts mountain climbing, you're like, oh, something's up. Something's about to happen, because things change. And if you'll notice, and this is a kingdom key, Jesus climbed up there first and told everybody to climb up where he is. Even on the Beatitudes, it says he climbed up there and waited for them to ascend to him. Look, I am quite aware, even when I look at, the number of people we have, or, we deal with, when you're on the tip of the cutting edge of the sword, it takes everybody else a while to catch up. And I don't mean that in any condescending way. I'm just so used to it. It's like, if you're a pioneer, you're used to going out and homesteading in big areas where there's a lot of, like when the gold rush happened and the Europeans went out to California, they didn't say, oh, there's nobody here. They weren't expecting anybody to be there. I mean, the Native Americans were there, but that's a whole other story. But I mean, from their vantage point of manifest destiny, they were like, well, of course there's not many people here because we're the first. Eventually, everybody else will catch up to it. But this is why I don't want to argue with people about biblical things, because I think you'll get this eventually. And it doesn't mean I'm better than you. It just means I'm further down the road. And I don't even have any issue with you. I understand why you need to do things a certain way. I understand eventually you will catch up. I mean, I just truly believe that. And I'm used to living on a mountaintop where the air is thin and it's rarefied. And I don't yell at people for not climbing the mountain yet. I'm just like, well, there's a lot of curves to get up here. If you're afraid of heights, it's going to mess with you. If you get easily car sick, it's like, you got to want to climb it. And I'll see you when you get up here. And Jesus, he didn't go down to where people were in the valley. He climbed up and didn't try to explain what it was like up here. It's like, well, come up higher, seated in heavenly places. So, the traditional English translation of the Mount of Temptation is Jesus looking at this other entity that we would call Satan. But really, he's dealing with Lucifer. He's dealing with his own light. He's arguing with his own light. He's deciding not to be afraid of his own light. When you start realizing who you actually are, it's kind of overwhelming. And you can't tell everybody that because they don't understand what you're saying. This was very unusual. I'm going to mention Howie a couple times in my sermon, but Howie's my friend. We were roommates freshman year in college, known each other since we were 17, 18. And before we left Wednesday night, we were packing up some stuff, and I was online. I was writing my meditation before we got on the road. And Howie's very blunt about, like, he doesn't like Donald Trump, and he posts about it online. I'm like, that's your battle, like I don't want to argue. I don't want to spend my day arguing over Donald Trump. That's what you want to do, fine. He's very outspoken. He could say things to me that you can't say, because we've just known each other that long. You know what I mean? And we could say anything to each other. And so I'm sitting there, I'm online, he's working on his blog thing, and all of a sudden I look, he's just staring at me. And I looked up, I said, what? And he got sort of clouded up to cry, and he said, I'm very aware that you're very distracted right now. He said, I know you're concerned about, even overwhelmed about your parents. I said, no, I'm fine. He said, no. He said, I can tell that you've been different this trip. And I said, I've been fine. I've been great. He said, I'm not saying you've been difficult. I just know you, and I can tell you're distracted. And he said, I got to tell you something. He said, I've known you since I was 17 years old. He said, you can do anything. He said, I'm telling you. I said, I've seen you do the impossible. I've seen you work miracles. He said, you are equal to this. He said, I know you don't know how you're going to figure it all out, what to do with them, but he said, you're going to, and by the time he just kept saying it, I'm crying, Ken's crying, we're all crying, because it's so out of character for him to say anything like that. And I said, Hallie, I would rather you say that than 100 Kim Clements. Right. He said, why? I said, because you know me. And I said, now I'll rise to the occasion because my oldest friend said I would by virtue of the fact that he's seen me do it before. Do you understand? And he said, I'm surprised to have that much clout with you. I said, no, that's what prophecy is now. It's not if I never for the rest of my life have anybody say, yea, the Lord thy God, or call me up, I'm fine. I've had more of that than I ever wanted. But when it's somebody who has relationship with you, it is. And understand this. Hear me. There's too much vertical prayer going on and not enough horizontal prayer. Because the prayer, I've told you this a zillion times, but this couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago, we rented this restaurant over here, not Opera Diem, but the other one. And I had rented it for the day, and Charles was there, and we were gonna do a series. Doc was part of it. We did a taping of several In the Now messages, and I had asked Rutherford to be a part of it. And the day before, he called me and he said, "I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this." He said, "I've got to drive to Waco," and he had this whole list of reasons, why, these impossibilities why I can't get there. And I don't think I'm going to have a car to come back, and blah, blah, blah. And he even said, "Would you be in agreement?" I said, "Let me stop you right there. I don't have to pray. You're, off the record, I'll tell you," I said, "You're Robert freaking Rutherford," is what I said. "You'll be there." He said, "When you said that, something in me said, oh, I'll be there." And he came walking in earlier than anybody else. I said, "How'd you get here?" He said, "You wouldn't believe it if I told you." He said, "I might as well have been translated today. But it was because you said it." I've told you, some of y'all remember Jane Smith that used to go to Church of the Now, one of the sweetest ladies I've ever met in my life. This was years ago, and I told this for so many years. One time she told me, she said, "I'm afraid to even have a cold now because I think it's going to make you look bad." But she had kidney failure. They said her daughter called and said she'll be dead within the hour. If you want to see her, you've got to come now. They had already cut her jugular vein. It was like they were prepping her to go. I walked in and she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" And I said, "Jane, I didn't come to pray for you." I said, "I think, this is what I think." I said, it's probably, it's safe to assume that you've probably never said a negative word about me." She says, "Never one time." I said, I would forgive you if you did, but I can just tell that about you. You have nothing but love for me. I said, "Is there anything I've ever asked you to do that you have said no to?" She said, "I would do anything for you." And I said, "Well, this is what I'm going to tell you. You don't have permission to die. I don't want you to die. You're not ready to die yet. I'm going to go so far as to say, if you die right now, you're in rebellion to your pastor. Your death would be an act of rebellion because I don't want to let you go." She was out of the hospital that night. She was at church Sunday. It was like people had seen a ghost. Like, "What are you doing here?" She said, "Bishop told me I couldn't die." If you've ever, some of you, if you know the musical Les Miserables, at the end of it, when Jean Valjean is singing it, it says, "Yes, Cosette, forbid me now to die. I'll obey, I will try." In other words, he was saying, if you tell me not to die, I won't die. Now, finally, she did. I think she lived another 13, 14 years after that. But, that's longer than the afternoon. Again, I don't have that relationship with everybody. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're posting passive-aggressive stuff about me on Facebook, don't ask me later in the day to pray for it, because I'm like, I'm not your guy. You better get somebody who has some influence with you, because you're just, it's like Jesus in his hometown. He couldn't do any mighty miracles because they said, he's not a miracle worker. He's Joseph the carpenter's son. And to them, that's all he was. Look, I'm going to get really real with you. There were some of you, when what happened 9 years ago happened, it challenged your comfort zone. I had people tell me, "Wow, if this had been anybody but you, I don't think I could got my head around it. But you've been my pastor for all these years. If you say this is who you are, then I guess I've got to have a paradigm shift about this." Do you know what? That's quite a test for some people to pass. And if you pass it, it takes you to a whole nother level. I know "nother's" not a word. But it's like, no, this isn't about the person exactly, but it kind of is. If you say it, do you know what I mean? It's like when it was so out of character for Howie to say something, because Howie can be negative about stuff. And he just said, "No, I'm telling you." He must have said it 5 times, and he says, "You are equal to this. You are equal to this." I'm like, okay. And I didn't realize I needed to hear it so badly. Do you understand? I don't need, people say, "We're praying for you." No, you're not. That's like, you know what I mean? That's just such a lie. People say thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. If I hear one more person say thoughts and prayers, I'm going to slap some punches to your thoughts and prayer. Because it's just something that people say. A prayer is something I send to you. I make a demand on you. I mean, it's horizontal. I mean, to the point now, I think when you're always sending the prayers up this way, God is saying, what? Did you not read the "it's necessary that I go away" part? I mean, what else have I got to do? I need to not be here so you'll stop praying to me. All right. This is in the Aramaic. Matthew 4, verses 1 through 10. Then Jesus was drawn from Ruka de Kucha, which means it's Aramaic for his regular life, into an unprotected state. In the King James says he was led by the Holy Spirit to be tempted into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Here it says into an unprotected state for what would be his stress from uprightness. Be tempted from the devil is very different from stress from uprightness. And he fasted 40 days and 40 nights. At the end, he hungered, and then came his own temptations. King James says the devil came to him. Here it says his own temptations came and said to him, "If you are the Son of Allah, say to these stones to become bread." But he responded and said, "It is written that not by bread alone does a man have perfect life, but by every word that issues forth from the mouth of Allah." Then uprightness. King James says the devil carried him. Here in the Aramaic it says, then uprightness carried him to a holy city and stood him upon the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, cast your napsha down." Napsha is your physical body. Where's the battle here? It's in his own mind. It's battling with his light. Do you know what? We've wasted so much time on spiritual warfare, rebuking demons that aren't there. Do you know what? Do you know what the real battle is? Deciding if you're going to let your light shine. If you are the Son of God, cast your napsha down. For it is written, his angels will have charge of you, and on their hands they will take you, so that your feet will not be touched by a stone. Jesus said to it. King James says Jesus said to him. Jesus said to it, also it is written to not put the Lord your God to a test. Again, uprightness carried him to a very high mountain and pointed out for him all the kingdoms of the world and their glories, and said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall." Again, it's prostrate, and that's on me. I typed that out. There's supposed to be an R there. Prostrate and worship me. Good. Then said Jesus to it, "Get out, Satana, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him alone shall you serve." This is Jesus deciding, am I really who I think I am? Do I dare be that person? All right. Now let me bring this up to where we are today. Go ahead, because I've got to get this scripture to you. This is part 2. This is the Mount of Transfiguration. Now, you know, the Bible was broken up into chapters and verses about the 3rd century. The verse, I don't remember his name, but there was a French monk who divided everything up into verses. And we need verses because they help you locate where something is. My biggest issue with the Message Bible is he didn't do it in verses, and it's the hardest thing in the world for me to find where he's talking about. Because I grew up with, I know Philippians 4:13 is I can do all things through Christ. I know those numbers. I know Hebrews 11:1 is now faith is the evidence of things not seen. I know Romans 8:28 is now we know that all things work together for good. I mean, I know all those things. So I'm used to those numbers. The problem with the numbers is, however, they make us not see the context. For instance, and most of false theology has come from not understanding context. For instance, John 14 is, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms." King James says many mansions. The The Bible never talks about mansions. There are no mansions in heaven. I mean, you can sing about them. Dottie Rambo she made all her money on build my mansion next door to Jesus. It's a nice idea. No such thing. Jesus never, ever, ever said it. It's the result of one language being translated to another language, to another language, to another language, and you get this weird morphed thing that doesn't say what the original said. And the thing is, sometimes even now, I will quote that verse. Every funeral I've done this, except for the one I did Monday, I've probably quoted that, even though I know that's not what that really means. That's where most people are, and it brings them comfort. So it's like reading a storybook to children. It's like that's what they think this means, and this will give them some comfort. So I'm going to say, in my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go prepare a place for you. In their growth-stunted state, it's not the time for me to try to educate them at a funeral. My job there is let's just comfort the afflicted. I mean, there's a reason why even the scripture says comfort the feeble-minded. I'm not saying they're feeble-minded, but I'm just saying that's not the appropriate time to try to do school of the Bible. It's like, that's what you think this means, so I'm just going to say this verse to you, and you'll be happy with it. But it's also why I can't go to church anywhere else, because I think, I ask, Christina's husband is a director. He directs MacGyver, and there's another series he does. And his mother's an Oscar-winning costume designer, and his dad, who was deceased, was Humphrey Bogart's friend. I mean, and I asked Christina this week, I said, is Todd able to enjoy movies? She says, no, not really, because when we go, he's saying, I wish I said, that's why I can't enjoy preaching. Even, nothing against, this was Ken's pastor growing up, nothing against him, sweet man, but he was reading his sermon for the funeral. And church is packed, Ernie and Avery were there, so church is packed, and he's reading 1 Corinthians 13, which was she was a very loving woman, I'm good with that. But he says, and if I have the gift of prophecy, and I didn't mean to, I said prophecy. I couldn't help it, I just said it. Of course, every Methodist head in there turned to me, and I'm like, well, but I thought, this is why I can't listen, because the whole time I'm like, that's not what that verse means, I don't know what that means, and I don't want to argue with you, it's just like, that's not what that means. So I just have to go to a theater in Midtown and start my own thing, and see who will show up, Y'all, 5 years, y'all are still here. I mean, there's not a lot of you left, but where else could I go? I know, where else would you? That's what, Leona said that to me early on. She says, well, we can't go to church anywhere else now. We're grown folks. We can't go, baby. All right. So, but if you read that John in context, he was talking to Peter. It was after Peter had denied him 3 times. Well, no, he was when he prophesied. He says, you're going to deny me. And Peter said, I never will. He said, yeah, before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. But let not your heart be troubled. In my Father's house, it's the Greek word mone. And he said, my Father's house, there will still be a room for you. In other words, he says, you're going to do something in the next few hours you don't even think you're capable of, but it's not going to disqualify you from the ministry. That's what he was talking about. But because it was broken up in chapters and verses, we thought he was talking about mansions in heaven. He was saying, you're going to do some really stupid thing that you're going to beat yourself up over, but it's going to be okay. I'm going to build the church on the rock of the revelation that you have. What's that got to do with this? All right. I'm not going to turn there right now, but in chapter 16 of Matthew, chapter 16 is where Jesus says to his disciples, who do men say that I am? Some say you're Elijah, some say you're John the Baptist. Clearly they believed in reincarnation. Jesus says, well, who do you say that I am? Well, I say you're the Christ, Son of the living God. So that's when he says, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. And then he goes on to say, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'll be crucified, I'll be back. And that's when Peter says, no, Lord, we never let that happen to you. And Jesus calls him Satan. Give me a hummy, Satan. He's saying, I know that's what you think is the right thing, but it's a wrong thought. You're not thinking of it the right way. It's not a demon. It's lesser light. It's light that's obscuring your best light. So in that, he ends what we call chapter 16, and he says, there are some of you standing here who will see the Son of Man return in his glory. Now, there are fundamentalist literalists who believe that there are 2,000-year-old people still walking on the earth. Because they say, well, the Bible can't lie. I'm like, it doesn't lie. You're just an idiot. How do you not know? He says, some of you standing here will still be alive when you see the Son of Man return in his glory. And one thing I love about the message is Eugene Peterson picked up on this, because look how he starts verse 1 of chapter 17. He says, 6 days later, 3 of them saw that glory. He wasn't talking about an event. You can stand and look up in the sky all you want to. I promise you. I was thinking, wow, it's about to be 2020. It's the year 2020. 20 years into the 21st century. 2020. I remember people saying, we won't be here past the year 2000. We've been here 20 years past the year 2000. 20 years. That's nearly enough time for 3 full tribulation periods. It's not an event. He says, you're about to see it. 6 days later, 3 of them saw that glory. Jesus took Peter and the brothers James and John and led them up a high mountain. Something's about to go down because we're going up a mountain. Let me tell you about a mountain. It's hard to climb mountains. Do you know what I mean? It goes against your comfort zone. Even Tuesday this week, we stopped and we're taking some pictures, and there was a marker kind of up a mountain, and I climbed up the path to read it, and I said, Howie, this is like a big overlook thing. It's just about a mile up here. And he said, I'm not going to do that today. And I was kind of relieved, because I kind of didn't feel like it either. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe we're I don't want to say maybe we're getting too old for this, but we've done some high impact hiking before, to where I'm like, sweet Lord, I hope I guess I think if Howie had a heart attack. He's a big boy. We just have to bury him up. I just had to bury him and say we lost him, because I don't know how would I even get. When he said, I don't feel like going, I said, trust your instincts. Because I don't know how we can't even get phone service out here. How would I get you life flighted out of here? Let's say if you don't think you can do it, then let's don't do it. And I was kind of relieved too. I was like, honestly, I don't feel like it all that much myself. Because climbing a mountain's it's beautiful, it's worth it, but you're going against gravity. Your religious tradition is gravity. When you're trying to climb the mountain of the Lord, there's a part of you that says, I'm tired, and y'all, don't y'all miss the devil? We could just blame him for everything. Remember the devil? Life was so much easier then. We could smoke for 30 years and say the devil gave us lung cancer. Like, it's great. What? Thank you. You don't have to deal with your uprightness. Woo! Pat, get out of here. That was too good. Uprightness. Traveling up. It's hard to breathe up there. Woo! I'm going to have to burst into a chorus of Climb Every Mountain. His appearance changed from the inside out right before their eyes. Sunlight poured from his face. His clothes were filled with light. Then they realized that Moses and Elijah were also there in deep conversation with him. Now this is interesting. Why Moses and Elijah? Well, chapter 16, some say you're Elijah. When you start walking in the light, you start walking in the now. Everything is everything. You don't deal with everything as past, present, future. Moses and Elijah, and if you notice, Moses wasn't there with the Ten Commandments with him. It was Moses as he is now. Now we know in part, but then shall we know even as also we are known. Peter broke in, Master, this is a great moment. What would you think if I built 3 memorials here on the mountain? One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. While he was going on like this, babbling, a light, radiant cloud enveloped them. So now, look at this. You remember the movie Cocoon, when the aliens revealed themselves, and that girl, she's actually Raquel Welch's daughter, that Toni Welch, beautiful girl, and they're in the pool, and he thinks she's taking her bikini off. She actually takes her skin off, and it's this light that comes. It's limited special effects from back in the day, but they were these beings of light that were obscured with the flesh. While he was going on like this babbling, a light. So it goes from his face is radiant. Now his clothes become light. Now it's just like light just starts filling up. It's like, you know how when you see the lights come on a football stadium and they kind of go gradually down the field. It's like till everything's like super illuminated. In other words, they didn't even realize how much light was in him. And sounding from deep in the cloud a voice, this is my son, marked by my love, focus of my delight, listen to him. When the disciples heard it, they fell flat on their faces, scared to death, but Jesus came over and touched them. Don't be afraid. When they opened their eyes and looked around, all they saw was Jesus, only Jesus. Coming down the mountain, Jesus swore them to secrecy. Don't breathe a word of what you've seen. After the Son of Man is raised from the dead, you are free to talk. The disciples, meanwhile, were asking questions. Why do the religion scholars say that Elijah has to come first? Jesus answered, Elijah does come and get everything ready. I'm telling you, Elijah has already come, but they didn't know him when they saw him. The I am is light. The light is I am. So Jesus says, some of you standing here are going to see me in my glory. 6 days later, 3 of them did. And they could hardly bear it. You know, when Moses came down off Sinai, he had to veil his face because the people couldn't bear to look at him. 2 things. I know I've told you these stories many times, but I have to make my point with them. This is my other reference to Howie. When we were in college, this was really out of character for us. I don't know. I still don't remember what triggered this. We didn't room together the whole 4 years. We off and on. Like sometimes he'd go to Paraguay or whatever. And so for one semester we roomed together, and maybe junior year, and we were just up talking about maybe we'd been to some meeting or something. We started really feeling the Spirit and we started to pray. It was really, we didn't usually pray together. We started praying, and we were praying in the Spirit. I've told you this before, but this was an unusual experience because as we're praying, we started praying in our prayer language. And I said, let's just do it. We're just sitting there. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're, praying in the Spirit, praying in the Spirit. And all of a sudden, he says, I know what you're saying. I said, what do you mean? His parents were missionaries to Paraguay, and he said, you're speaking Guarani. I said, what are you talking about? He said, that's a hybrid of Indian dialects and Portuguese. But he said, you're speaking. And I said, what am I saying? He said, well, do it some more. So I'm like, speaking in tongues. And he said, you just said, I love you, Lord. It's like, it was the kind of things I would have said in English, but I was saying them in another language. Well, that just took us to a whole other level. So we're just praying and praying and praying. It went on for hours. Finally, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever. we kind of started coming down out of it. Guys on our hall weren't even up stirring yet. And I said, let's go. There was a 24-hour breakfast place. I said, I'm starving. Let's go get something to eat. So we get up, start walking out, and we pass the night watchman. I'm not exaggerating. He actually, he looked at me. He looked at us and he went, oh! Like that. And we looked at each other. I said, what are you doing? He said, what have you guys been doing? I said, praying. He said, my God. He said, you're so bright. You're hurting my eyes to look at you. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he said, I don't know. He said, I can't look right at you. He said, you're glowing. It's the only time that ever happened. But, I mean, it's unusual when somebody goes, ow! Like you're hurting their eyes. And then I've told you the story about when Mario took me to Colombia, and we had probably 3,000 people there, and I'm speaking through an interpreter. And afterwards, people lined up, and Betty was interpreting, and they all kept saying, there's a blue light around you. There's a blue light around you. All these different people said, there's a blue. I'm like, I don't see. You sure it's not the lighting it? No, they're all seeing a blue light. Even after I got home, I was preaching a couple of nights later, and somebody brought their brother who didn't even come to church, and he said, he called me later. He said, I just want you to know, my brother, who has a tendency to do some drugs, did not hear your story, but he sees a blue light all around you. I said, did he hear me say the story? He said, no, he doesn't know anything about that. And while he's talking to me, I'm on the phone looking in the mirror like, I don't see it. I'm like where's the blue? I don't see it. And the light's not always the same level. When I talk about raise your vibrations, I could just easily say turn up your light. It's the same thing. Light is energy. But this is amazing because when Jesus shows them this, what they see is his light. Everything is everything. Moses and Elijah are still here walking around. They're not dead. They're in another dimension. They don't know that. When's Elijah coming? He says, Elijah's already come. He said, he's actually John the Baptist. I mean, that's a very loaded statement. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this earlier because I thought, I don't really speak in tongues that much anymore. I mean, I could if I needed to. If there was one day during meditation a few weeks ago, I said, I'm just going to do this, and I gave an utterance. Didn't fully understand it. I'm not against that. But I was thinking about this today, and I thought, 'cause I don't really identify with that. Now, I haven't renounced it. It's just not really kind of where I'm at now. Just like that, I thought, whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall vanish away, or knowledge it shall vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. I'm not against the gifts of the Spirit, but the gifts of the Spirit are a means to an end. I'm glad that that's in my background. But now, I'm in a higher level of consciousness. I love that. I respect it. I honor it. I revere it. I probably will never for the rest of my life pray for someone to be baptized in the Holy Spirit and wait to hear them speak in tongues. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. I already did that. I have moved into that which is perfect is coming in me. And I'm walking in the light. That's what, it's amazing that how many people got a revelation and then just camped there. They just crystallized it. It doesn't mean it was a bad thing. I loved high school. I remember when I graduated from high school, I was sad. I was like, I'm not going to see these people. I loved them. I didn't love going to class so much, but I loved my friends when I was away at college in Florida. I loved being in Central Florida and close to the beach and having some independence. I loved that. Do I want to go back now? No. I would feel silly going to the senior prom Wouldn't that be? I would just like, no. I love that I did it. I don't want to get up and go to J. Bashford Bishop's early morning class, 7:30 parliamentary law that I dropped 3 times because it was across campus. I don't want to do that. I'm glad I did it. In case I ever need to conduct a meeting with parliamentary procedure, I know how to do it. But I already did that. Even this week, I love being a grandfather. But when I heard that diaper action going on, I was like, Christina, I'll do it if I have to, but I kind of feel like I paid my dues already. I mean, I changed so many diapers with the 4 of y'all. I mean, I'll do it if I have to, but I just love it if you would do it now. I'll do it if I have to. Don't miss it. Glad I can say I was a hands-on father. Nobody, I mean, for whatever anybody I was ever married to ever could say, nobody can ever say, we never knew who he was. No, I was there in the delivery room, I'm walking around the kitchen singing a song to Clementine that I sang to her mother in the delivery room. And I'm like, that's a beautiful thing. I love being a grandfather. I don't want to be a father of small children. I tell Robert, I'm like, you're something else. You're a totally different type person than me. I think it's amazing what you've done with these children, but I am not gifted for that. I don't even want, nothing against your dog. I don't want a dog. I've had dogs. I was an only child, so we had lots of animals to compensate. So, I mean, I just remember taking dogs to walk and cleaning out cages and cat litter, and that's great if you need the company. I already did it. And a lot of men like us who don't have children, their dogs are real important to them. To the point when Ken and I met, I said, can I just ask you, do you have a dog? Because there's a few guys I met on Match.com. Let me look at your Facebook page. There are 10,000 pictures of your dachshund wearing a birthday hat. I don't think. Because after you've had children, you realize dogs are dogs, children are children. And people say, they're my children. No, they're your dog. You can love them. I can tell I'm making some dog lovers mad. They are my children. No. What? Yeah. Yeah, I need to stop that right now. I can tell the anointing just lifted. People are like, we were going with you. You can take the devil away, but don't you mess with the dog. You're like, all right. I bring it back. I'm nothing without a dog. But that's the way so many people are theologically. Like, I'm glad for the Word of Faith movement. I'm glad for everywhere I came from. When I went to Ken's home church, the first thing I was looking at, they had those old-fashioned fans, and I wanted to find one. Where's the white Jesus? Holding, the Good Shepherd. It's not at all what Jesus looked like, but white people wanted him to be. So white people created a white Jesus. You just gotta love us. So I found that fan. It's like, wow, that brings back so many memories of going to homecoming and dinner on the ground. I'm not mad at that. I'm like, I get it. I understand. Every song that the pianist was playing, I knew the words to those songs, and I grew up. There's an affection for it. I was sitting there. I said, Ken, is that the same piano your mom played? Yes. So I'm sure he feels very connected to it. I'm not against that any more than I'm against childhood. As a matter of fact, Jesus said you have to be like a child, so I think you have to embrace where you came from. I mean, if you came from Catholicism, don't hate Catholicism. Incorporate it into where you are now. One thing I'll give the Catholics, back when Mary was appearing on the 13th of every month, and 100,000 Catholics from all over the world would come there and stand in a field and look. I'll give them E for effort. Charismatic people wouldn't walk across the street to hear from God unless there's some really good music or something. You tell some charismatics to go stand in the field and wait for something to happen. They're not doing it. Catholics will. You tell Catholics, Mary appeared on my refrigerator, they'll be lining up around your, looking for an apparition. I don't look down on that. I'm like, well, you know what? They have a heart for the supernatural. That's not how I would look for it. But road trip. So I'm like, all that's in context for me. Now I want to just move towards the light. Move towards the light. And anything, I'm not fighting a devil. Sometimes old thoughts of maybe you're not that guy, maybe you're not that whatever, they will arise. And you have to do battle with that. That's what you deal with. Until you are to the place that you no longer fear your light. Even with Lori's friend that I put my hand on, that's a simple thing. You could say, well, that's not cancer. That's not whatever. No, but I didn't feel any hesitation. It's just like, I just speak healing to you. Boom, there it was. And the times lately that things have happened, you know, I lose everything in a river and call it back or whatever. It's like I'm not upset about it. And if I start feeling anxious about something, I think this is a thought that's trying to obscure my light. And this is why I'm so committed to meditation. I think the more you meditate, the more you get quiet, the more you let your light shine, the more you are who you are, the more you walk into your Mount of Transfiguration, and whoever Moses and Elijah is for you it might be your grandmother and some other person that's a guide, but they're there. You say you hear from Toby. With Jesus on his Mount of Transfiguration, it was Moses and Elijah. For you, it's him. On occasion, I felt very strong presence of my maternal grandfather. We were talking about it this week as Avery's working on putting the Washed by the Word thing on CD Baby. And I was looking at what's going to be on the cover. And, you know, I dedicated it to, you know, my maternal grandfather was called the Walking Bible. And many times when I used to really quote whole chapters of the Bible, I would nearly feel my grandfather speaking through me. And not the least of which, as I told you, when my 4 grandparents visited me. And after that, hate mail never bothered me again. When my grandmother looked at me and said, General, stuff like that matters on that side, doesn't matter anything on this side. I said, I'm free. That was my Mount of Transfiguration. I didn't need Moses and Elijah. I needed Addie Mae. And when you get, here's the goal. I'm going to end it with this. To be so full of light, so given to light energy, that whatever the river is for you, you can say, let us cross to the other side and get in the boat and go to sleep. The disciples said, do you not care that we perish? Jesus didn't even need there to be good weather. I'm telling you, something happened to me. Something really happened to me in Lake Chattooga. Because I have really loved the fact that the rain has obeyed us for the previous ones. And on this one, I was like, let it rain. It's like, and it wasn't that I was giving up on speaking of the rain. Especially if we go to the beach, you don't want to be rained out. But out there, I was just like, yeah, it's fine, let it rain. It's like, oh, I just had a paradigm shift. Like, it's always a good day. It's always a good day. I was in my meeting with Avery, said, do we have money? And she shows me, she says, but just so you know, that last money that came in, we're kind of down into getting into that. I said, so basically you're saying if that money hadn't come in, we'd be in trouble. She goes, yeah, pretty much. I said, well, then we'll need a thing like that to happen again. And it will. There was a time that would have really not ruined my day, but I would have worried about it. I was like, I'm not worried about it. I mean, it's just money. Universe filled with money. If I need money, there'll be money. Money in a fish's mouth. Let's go fishing. Whatever. It's like, it's not that you're just like, I don't care anymore. It's not. It's something much higher than that. It's like, it'll be fine. It doesn't matter to me what the circumstances are. That to me is very low vibrational. When you say, let's check the weather to see. No, that's fine if you want to do that. Jesus is so enlightened that he just says, let's cross to the other side. Let's cross to the other side. What about the economy? Let's cross to the other side. What about what the doctor said? Let's cross to the other side. The doctor said this disease is age-related. Let's cross to the other side. It doesn't matter. You tell me that. Yeah, I understand it. I understand. I'm not foolish. It's just that your rules and your limitations, they don't apply to me anymore. And if I tell you that, you're going to think I'm nuts, so I'm not going to tell you that. I'll just say, okay, I'll worry. I'll worry about it. If that'll make you happy. But I'm not going to worry about it. Because let there be light. Let's all stand. Go ahead and play this, and then we'll speak a word over you. Did you get anything out of this
Contributing to
today?
Metron is quick
Bet
and
Def
easy.
calls.
You can give any time using any smartphone. Text the amount you would like to donate to 404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishopthenow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment.
If you're
into
making a
Metron.
check, make the JESM. Danny will receive that. If you have cash, pay it forward. Let your light so shine before people that they may see your good works. You are light. Do not fear your own light. Do not put your light under a bushel. Let your light shine. Let your light shine. Let your light shine. Peace.